So linear versus non-linear. If linear means a straight line. So if it has anything with an exponent or a square root after we simplify, and all these are at the top, then they're going to be a not linear. So this is non-linear. And this next one, the square root of y minus 2 equals 7, that's also going to be non-linear. And 4z plus 8z minus 2 equals 7. The exponents are only 1, which is what we want to see to know that it's going to be linear. And just as a bonus, just to make sure you know, if we have something like 1 over x, this is going to be non-linear. And the reason is the exponent is actually, if you go back to the prior unit, this is the same thing as writing x to the negative 1 power. So that's non-linear. So for it to be linear, it has to be a straight line, and we can identify that by having an exponent of 1. So what is the inverse? In formulae, we'll just say the word opposite of addition. Well, of course, that's going to be subtraction. For subtraction, that's going to be addition. Multiplication, that's going to be division. And, of course, for division, that's going to be multiplication. So what that means is when we go through and solve these are just one-step equations right here at the top next row. A plus 3 equals negative 11. We get rid of the stuff that's on the same side of the letter. That's the positive 3. The opposite or inverse of adding 3 is subtracting 3. So we're going to subtract 3 on both sides. That's going to give us A equals negative 14. And for the next one, we have b minus 4 equals 5. Well, the opposite or inverse of subtracting 4 is adding 4, so we're going to add 4 to both sides. That's going to give us b equals 9. Now, since this is going to be a test, you really do want to check your answers, even for simple ones like this. You think, hey, especially for the one with a, there you got the negative, because a lot of students will come up with 8, or negative 8 as the answer. And if you were to put in negative 8 in your calculator, you would see that negative 8 plus 3 equals negative 5, which is not a negative 11, so that means we did something wrong, and we want to go back and double check it. Next one, negative 5c equals 21. This means negative 5 times c. Anytime you see a number next to a letter like this, it means multiplication. So we're going to do the opposite, which is division. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 5. And that's going to give us c equals 21 over negative 5. And if we use our calculator, that's going to be negative 4.25. So either one of those answers should be acceptable. If you're going fast and you're new to this, you're going to think that the next answer is 5. You're going to see like division, you're kind of thinking 5 or negative 5 if you kept track of the negative. But what we want to do is the opposite, and the opposite, of course, of division is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2, and negative 10 times 2 is a negative 20. So for the next one, we have 2x minus 3 equals 15. Well, we get rid of the stuff that's on the same side of the letter, but not touching it. That's going to be the negative 3. So the opposite of a negative 3 is a positive 3. So we add 3 to both sides. That's going to give us 2x equals 18. I don't know if you can hear all that clicking with this mouse or not, and I guess I kind of apologize if you do. And that means 2x equals 18, and the opposite of multiplication is, of course, division. So we divide both sides by 2, not 18. What was that? And that's going to give us x equals 9. And again, you want to check your answer. The next one on here, we get rid of the stuff that's on the same side of the letter. Let's switch colors here to go to a green. Make it a little bit bigger. Same stuff, get rid of the stuff that's on the same side of the letter, but not touching it. That's the positive 5. So we're going to subtract 5 on both sides. And that's going to give us, we'll switch colors one more time. We'll go to this orange one. 4/7 y equals 6. And then you could say we're going to divide both sides by 4/7, which is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So we're going to multiply both sides by 7 over 4. And I like to write it just to be very clean about it. Make sure that we're showing our steps. Now we can divide any number by 1 without changing it. So I'm just going to make the 6 over 1. And now when we multiply straight across, 6 times 7 is 42. And 1 times 4 is 4. And if we use our calculator for that, we should come up with y equals 10.5 for our answer. And again, we do want to take the time to check our answer. So go ahead and pause it if you need more time before we go on to the next page. So we got all these equations that we need to solve. So starting with the top left one, we want to multiply both sides by this fraction here by 2. Get rid of the denominator. So we're going to multiply both sides by 2. And that just crosses out the 2 there. So it's really going to be negative 5a plus 3 equals negative 20. And now it's a two-step linear equation. We get rid of the stuff that's on the same side of the letter but not touching it. That's the positive 3. So we're going to subtract 3 on both sides. That's going to give us negative 5a equals negative 23. And then we would divide both sides by negative 5. That means that a is going to equal 4.6. I use my calculator to double check. Next one, we got negative b minus 5 at quantity is all over 3. And just real quick, that's the same thing as we wrote it out like this. We could write out the left side. Fractions are a friend, because otherwise we'd have to write it like this. And we wouldn't want to write it like this. That's too long and might even be more confusing. But we're going to multiply both sides by 3 first. That's going to give us negative b minus 5 equals 75. Make sure I emphasize that negative there. And that's a minus 5, almost looks like a multiplication dot. So we clear that up. Get rid of the stuff that's on the same side of the letter by not touching it. That's the negative 5. So we're going to add 5 to both sides. That's going to give us negative b equals 80. Now, what we may have forgotten is negative b is the same thing as writing negative 1 times b equals 80. So now we divide both sides by negative 1. And that's going to give us an answer of b equals negative 80. And for the next one, we want to combine like terms first. We got the 2c and a positive c. Remember that there's a little 1 right here. So when we put those together, the 2c and the 1c, that really makes a 3c. That's how many c's we have. 2 apples plus an apple is 3 apples. And then we have a positive 15 and a negative 1, which makes a positive 14. That's going to equal negative 50. Now we get rid of the stuff that's on the same side of the letter but not touching it. That's the positive 14. The opposite or inverse is subtracting 14. So we subtract 14 on both sides. That's going to give us 3c equals negative 64. And then, of course, 3c means 3 times c. So we want to divide both sides by 3. And this time it's going to give you a nice little infinite repeating decimal. You probably just, in this kind of case, don't round. Do not round unless it tells you to round. You're just going to leave your answer as negative 64 over 3. Okay, do not round unless it tells you to round your answer. For the bottom left one, 10x minus 6 equals 2x plus 25. There's lots of different ways we could approach this. I'm generally going to move all the letters to the left side first. So the opposite or inverse of a positive 2x is a negative 2x. So I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides. It's going to give us 8x minus 6 equals 25. Then we go to the stuff that's on the same side of the letter but not touching it. That's the negative 6. So the opposite is adding 6. So we add 6 to both sides. That's going to give us 8x equals 31. And then, of course, we would divide both sides by 8. Let's get out the white marker for this and write that in. Sorry, that's not a well-written 8. And that's going to give us x equals 3.875. And for the last one on here, we get rid of the stuff that's on the same side. We have negative 3y minus 2 equals negative y plus 16. Remember, there's a little 1 right here, so it's really negative 1y. I like to move my letters to the left side. That's generally how I approach it. So I'm going to add 1y to both sides first. There's different ways that are correct to do. It's up to you. You could have added 3y, you could have added 2, you could have added 1y, or you could have subtracted 16. All would be perfectly fine first steps. Negative 3y plus 1y is negative 2y. Negative 2y minus 2 equals 16. Get rid of the stuff that's on the same side of the letter but not touching it. That's the negative 2. So we're going to spend more time figuring out what color I want to use. Add 2 to both sides. I haven't used purple yet. That's going to give us negative 2y equals 18. Negative 2y means negative 2 times y, so now finally we're going to divide both sides by negative 2, and that's going to give us y equals negative 9. So go ahead and pause it if you need more time. And this last question, a couple of questions. Whenever you see a number next to parentheses, this is going to be the distributive property, and we want to think of multiplication. Now, some teachers, and this is totally fine, would divide both sides by 5 in the first one. There's a reason why I'm not doing that. It has to do with inequalities, which will be a later date. But I'm going to distribute the 5. So 5 times 2x is 10x, and then a 5 times a negative 4 is a negative 20. Now, hopefully, you can do this for sure. This is just a two-step equation now. So we're going to get rid of the stuff that's on the same side of the letter, but not touching it. That's the negative 20. So we add 20 to both sides. That's going to give us 10x equals 120. 10x means 10 times x, so we're going to divide both sides by 10. We equal 12. And for the last one on here, we'll do the same thing. Same idea. I'm going to, and you could add 2 first. That's totally fine, but I'm just going to distribute first. 3 times 4p is 12p. And 3 times 1 is 3. Then I'm going to rewrite the rest of the numbers. I'm going to combine like terms, just that 3 and negative 2 will go together to make a positive 1. I'll get that little equal sign a little clear. So we have 12p plus 1 equals 10. Get rid of the stuff that's on the same side of the letter, but not touching it. That's the positive 1. So we subtract 1 on both sides. That's going to give us 12p equals 9. And then divide both sides by 12. And your answer then will be 0.75. And again, for all these, you really should be checking your work. And this will take care of part 1 of the test review.